interaction with MOAMC fund managers, the think tank that drives the investing decisions for some of our largest funds. This would be a point blank discussion on Indian markets and what they see as a way ahead. Participating in the discussion would be Mr. Siddharth Bothra, Fund Manager of MO Focused 25 Fund, Mr. Manish Sontalia, CIO, Portfolio Management Services and Alternative Investment Funds, Mr. Sushmit Patodia, Fund Manager, Value Portfolio Management Services, and Akash Singhania, Fund Manager, Multicap 35 Fund. Moderating this discussion would be Mr. Naveen Agarwal, the Managing Director of Motilal Oswal Financial Services Limited. They would be joined by Mr. Ramdev Agarwal. Gentlemen, over to you.
Thank you, Nidheen, and good evening, friends. We have the panel here, and we have Ramdevji also, joining in. So let me start with the first question. QGLP is what Motilal Oswal in asset management follows. Is something that Ramdevji coined a few years back. He has his wealth creation studies that have been going on non-stop now for 24 years. And he continues to devote a lot of time and effort to bring up with new insights to make the whole process very contemporary. That is the result in terms of the alpha that we've generated year after year. 17 years ago, when we started the first public markets product, we've generated a lot of alpha. But FY19 was different from the history. It was the first year where a lot of the funds lagged. And all of those funds actually followed QGLP. So when you look back and when you introspect, what do you think would be the reasons for QGLP to lag in FY19 and what are your learnings from that? Manish?
Yeah, okay. So, I've been born and brought up following this style of investing only. It's the margin of safety that we have always believed in. It has worked because India is a growth economy and, only growth style of investing works in the country. But somewhere down the line, the last 3, 4, 5 years, growth has actually slacked, and because of the quality aspect, the multiples have really, not really corrected all along, let's say 17, 18. But in 19, there was a slump in the price, or the price valuations had corrected vis-a-vis the growth, which was also lacking. So from that point of view, I think, my key learning on this QGLP framework is that we have all along practiced P as the last element in the QGLP stuff, but we have to be more cognizant of the valuation piece, and the function of the price piece, and in sync with the price piece, we have to actually allocate the amount that we should be doing. And it's not that irrespective of the growth, we can have a very high allocation to these quality names, but growth in the interim may be suffering.
Sure. Akash, Siddharth?
Yeah. So I think for me, the key learning was, when you look at FY19, it came, after 2-3 years of great performance for us. And I think if I were to, point out 2-3 things, the first thing was, I think in some of the stocks where valuations had become very expensive and even, fundamentally where growth was coming off, we continued to stay in a name, I think, for slightly longer. And we were not too, early in taking some profits there. So I think that was one. I think the other one, I would say more than that, was decisiveness. I think that was a period where, as rightly Manish mentioned, that, what we practiced, some of the stocks looked expensive and they were correcting. At the same time, our philosophy of being in QGLP high quality companies meant there was a lot of, other companies which were going up that time, which we never looked at. So I just felt that, at that time we were in between two, and, we were in a no man's land kind of a thing. We were neither, very, very, sure about some of the stocks here nor there. So I think there was a brief period of 5-6 months where, I think we were not, very sure about things, and I think decisiveness was lacking. So I think that was my takeaway, that you have to follow your style, and even if you have a period of time when it's not apparently working, you have to continue to be decisive in your decisions either way.
Sure, Akash.
In our QGLP approach, I find G to be the most complex to understand. And in G, sometimes we have structural growth, but sometimes we also have cyclical growth. So there are companies in various sectors like consumer discretionary, autos, where we have cyclical growth. The other point is sometimes the growth might take a beating because it is internal, or it could be because of external environment. So whenever the growth takes a hit because of cyclical issues or because of external environment, which are both set to improve during a cycle, I think the only lesson learned over there is to have patience, is to keep the faith, have conviction, and to ride that temporary phase where the things are not working, primarily from an external environment or from a cyclical environment. So my learning has been to keep the faith and have patience.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Akash, you talked about G, which is growth in earnings, being a very integral part or a very critical part of the entire QGLP process. And if you look at the last 5 years, last 5 years have been very unusual in terms of slowing down of economic growth, slowing down of corporate profits. In this, era of much slower growth, and now you have the COVID pandemic, and this is a lost year, and we are looking at FY22 being similar to FY20. With this lost growth, how does one, tweak QGLP in these times?
Sure.
Akash?
Sure. So we need to understand that investing from a QGLP perspective is a long-term investing. So long-term investing doesn't mean that you invest once and sleep. It means that you have to understand and give emphasis on factors which are important in the long run. So what are the factors which are important in the long run? When I say QGLP, these are the 4 components: quality, growth, longevity, and price. Let's say we are planting a plant. And when we say we are planting a tree, we give it an adequate soil, which is the quality. We give it water, which is growth. We give it sunshine, which is longevity. And then you have the right seeds and fertilizers, which gives the valuation or the price. So we don't grow a plant, we set all the conditions which enable the growth. So therefore, when we look at the longer term picture and keep the faith, providing all the essential ingredients and elements, obviously the results will follow and it will give us a very good fruit or flower at the end. So therefore, sticking to the process despite a near-term hiccup, it should not derail our investment success and journey.
Yeah, hi. Just to add to what Akash is saying, I think if we just take a step back, which is when we started the AMC, the vision was to give 20% compounding growth. It's interesting to think about how we arrived at that 20%. That was based on 10 to 12% nominal GDP. The large corporates will do about 13 to 15, and we will try and create an alpha of 20%, which is 5% above 15, so we get to 20%. I think FY19 was the first growth shock of India in the form of IL&FS crisis. At that time, we were still trying to aim for 20%. And as you would know, that if you try to overachieve, you will hit an accident. And I think that is where we changed. And our biggest learning coming out of the slowing of India has been that you cannot achieve a 20% compounding if your GDP growth of the country is 7%. So if you ask me, Naveen, my biggest learning from the slow growth is you have to drive as per the conditions of the road. And if it is not an expressway, you can't drive at 100 kilometers per hour.
Yeah. Absolutely. Ramdevji, do you have any questions for the team?
No, it's nice to hear from all of you. I think, yeah, how do you, tackling COVID, you heard in so many sessions there, nobody's talking about less than 12 to 18 months, like Nilkant, who is closest to the Delhi, he is also talking about 18 months also. So I think really, how do we tackle, how do we use? Actually, I find, to the best of my understanding of QGLP, I find it is a way, it is a tool which is very powerful. It all depends how you use it. And using it to the situation like say COVID is a very extraordinary period. I mean, it is a historical, nobody knows what is going to happen and how it is going to happen. We know one thing, economically, it is a challenge period. So how do you practice the same thing? You need to make changes, how you practice it. That is very important. And still trying to find quality. I mean, even now you should not compromise on the quality. The search for the growth at a reasonable price will be a very, very hard work, very, very hard work. You will come by one or two. Whenever you come by one or two or three of them, you must buy enough of it, because there is not going to be a bouquet of growth companies. There will be very few companies will be growing, and particularly if it's a larger amount of money, it will be even more challenging to find enough growth companies. So, so my sense is the framework is perfect. In fact, when I get confused, I also go to QGLP. I don't find anything lacking in that. It is all about how do you use it, you know. So it's all on the people on the dais, and how do they find their growth companies and all. I think this is the time actually quality will prove itself. Whether what happens to the non-qualities. I mean, even government is trying to say only quality companies. The companies which are not quality, they were already pre-COVID kind of a challenge. I don't think there is any package for them. In fact, they need the most. So what happens to the companies which are saved? And there is a whole lot of consolidation happening. So only quality will survive, and a lot of quality companies may also go down. So one has to be watchful. Even what happens to the character of the quality companies, in the sense that like what happened to Buffett's airline companies. After 25 years, he fell in love with the airline companies, and in 3-4 years time, the good quality, when he bought it, was looking to him as a good quality business, and suddenly it just became a useless kind of a business, and he's sold everything. So those kind of things are also going to happen. So there will be a lot of quality shocks which are going to happen. So adaptability at a fund manager's level is very important. It may lead to a little more turnover, but I think whenever you realize the mistake, I don't think one should get stuck with the bad companies in the portfolio. The way Buffett weeded out all the 4 companies in one shot, even at a loss. I think one has to be very, I would say, agile to the evolving situation in next 2-3 years. I mean, 1.5 years is COVID period, and then we have recovery period. So it is going to be a very different challenge and opportunity also for the people who can weed out the bad and focus more on the good. I think you might end up surprising people.
I would just like to add one more thing there. I think when you look at this COVID period, it's actually again the QGLP strength just stands out, because you cannot talk of growth in singularity. It has to be always talked of along with longevity. And when we look at prices, there's a lot of talk about how economies at one place, market prices is another. It's because the stock price is the intrinsic value of many years of cash flows. And if you buy longevated growth businesses, even if we get 1 year, 2 year of growth shocks, if you were to do your DCF for truly longevated growth companies, it does not change significantly. So I think another way, while what you're saying is right, one has to be mindful. This is a very difficult environment, but one has to also focus more and more on companies which have very, very longevated growth, and be mindful of what it means if you miss 1 year. Then when you get the entire context, decision making becomes much easier.
Sure. And in the QGLP construct, P stands for price, which is the valuation. But definitely P is not while it is last in this acronym, it is definitely not the least important, right? So how do you think about the importance of P when you think of the whole QGLP framework? Akash and Siddharth, both of you.
Yeah. So the way I look at it is that when you are driving a car, can I ask you which wheel is more important or which tire is more important? If one breaks, then will you travel? Will you be able to go forward? Absolutely no. So therefore, price is very important because of 3 reasons. First, it gives you the value. The value which you get is based on the price which you pay. Second, it gives you the power of compounding, because once you put the price in, from that moment, your power of compounding for the next 5, 10, 20 years starts. And third, it gives you the margin of safety. So paying the right price and getting the right margin of safety, getting the right value is very important. So I would say P is equally important like a tire in a running car, and it cannot be wished out of mind.
Yeah, absolutely. I think same view. I think P is as important, like it's the four legs of a table, or what Akash mentioned. But I think what happens is, I just add one point here, is sometimes there is a singular focus on one thing. If you talk of price to most people, to them it means next year's price to earnings, or 1 year forwards price to earning. I think there are different businesses. You have to look at it in different way, and essentially you have to be anchored to the intrinsic value of a company. I think the moment you do that, things become much clearer. Because just think about it. If there is a company, they are in different stages of life cycle. There could be someone who's at young, someone who's already at matured, and they would have all different characteristics, from ROE, cash flow perspective, to where they are, what is the penetration in the segments they are in. You have to take a holistic view, and what may seem like an expensive company to someone else may be very attractive to you. I mean, you can take example of many of the growth stocks. When we look at it after 5-6 years of great run, we say, oh, at that time it was great buy. But at that time also, when you go back and look at the valuations, it may appear to you very expensive. So my limited point is that we focus more on intrinsic value, and P has to be looked at in that context.
Sure. So,
Yeah. Naveen,
yes,
it's a very important discussion. Actually, this is the actually core of the thing. Like what Buffett says, price is what you pay, value is what you get. So price and value. So of the four components, I would say QGL is a value bucket and price is the price. So it is not even 50%. It is a complete correlation between the price and value bucket. And ultimately what you pay is what you pay, in the sense that that's from where your journey starts. So price is everything at the end of it. So I mean, value is only a guidance what price you should be paying. So we cannot be, I mean, there is no investing if you don't have margin of safety or reasonableness in the price, what you're paying. The issue is that value can be calculated by different guys. The value estimate, intrinsic value estimate of the companies could be very different. Because then that's where the edge comes. If somebody has done a lot more reading and understanding of a company, or company has also helped in understanding, then his understanding of the current strength of the company and the longevity of the company, and hence growth profile, that is superior than say other guy. Obviously he has an edge in estimating the value much better. But having estimated the value, the price you are paying, the first guy might be willing to pay a little higher price because he's convinced about sustained growth of 25-30%, and other guy is not convinced. So that's okay. I mean, second guy will sell and first guy will, but it doesn't take away the importance of price and value. It's not even a, I would say it is not a four-wheeled vehicle. It is a two-wheeled vehicle where price and value are both together,
sure, absolutely. So I remember, it's almost 20 years now that we started talking about buy right, sit tight first time in India. 17 years back when we launched our, when we started taking public money, we started talking about buy right, sit tight to all of them. And then several years back, we started talking about QGLP. Can you provide a context to, both of these things, Akash, Manish?
Maybe I could start. We say that, buy right, sit tight is the philosophy, and QGLP is the toolkit that we have, right? Philosophy is nothing but what dictates your behavior. And our behavior is buying companies, chunky positions, and sitting on them for a long time. So that gives you a context about buy right, sit tight. While QGLP, as Mr. Ramdevji just explained, is the way to figure out value and the equation with price. So I think that's the way I would look at it.
So what I think is that, when this buy right, sit tight principle has got incorporated within our philosophy, it was keeping in mind the cycles. Now with the current business environment, these cycles have become extremely short than what it was 17 years ago. This continuity and adaptability to the entire process of QGLP, has to be merged with the cyclicality of the businesses. And globally, this is happening, that cycles have become much shorter. But still, we have to actually marry that buy right, sit tight. Buy right is our core strength. We buy everything right. But the sitting right requires a lot of patience and practice, which in the case of public money management may not be that easy, because clients lose patience, but we remain convinced, because value is in the mind of the fund manager. He understands how this business is going to shape up. But the marketplace is not in the control of the fund manager. Marketplace has its own dynamics. PE valuations have their own dynamics, whether global, local, all of that is in not your hands. So, and when I talk about cycles, growth may play out according to that cycle, against that cycle, but the end point would be that same, but it may take slightly more time. The valuations correct in the interim massively. So ultimately your thesis is going to be right, but it will test your conviction and patience. And conviction and patience is not there with the public investors, is what my observation has been managing money for the public over the last 14, 15 years.
I would have a slightly different perspective here. I think firstly, our QGLP and buy right sit tight is to me almost same, because if you're buying businesses which you think has longevity, quality, you have to essentially the buy right sit tight is same. But I'll give you how I think about buy right sit tight. So think about it, think about it like, say you have an elephant. Yeah, you manage to get an elephant as a this thing. And if you are just happy taking away his tail, or just looking at his leg, and that's the only thing you take away, then you're missing the entire thing. So what we mean by buy right sit tight is that when you buy a stock, you see a story, you think that okay, something is say X today, say a tree is this much today, and say in 3 years, 4 years time, you think it will become something X. So what we mean by buy right sit tight is you ride the journey. It's not like your stocks doubled or it goes up 50% and you sell it. If you think at the time of buying that, look, I am buying this company which is say 1% of say any industry, say a retail industry today, but I think in 10 years time it will become 10%. So that first gives you the QGLP and buy right sit tight. So then you have to have your eye on that 10%. If something materially changes, you have to look at it.
Manish, you are the one of the biggest holders of small and mid caps in the overall asset management company, and small and mid caps are at extreme valuations right now compared to the large caps, and in terms of how they perform versus the large cap indices. So how should one think about them, given that we also have a COVID pandemic, growth is running out, big is becoming bigger. So in all that scenario, how would you look at small and mid caps?
Yeah, so I am of the firm belief that more money will be made in the mid and the small caps in the next 3 years than what will be made in the large cap space. And why should I say this? It's for the simple reason that due to regulation changes, fund flows into this segment of the market has been choked or restricted. There is no problem with the companies per se. If you look at the earnings growth on the portfolios, it is still very, very healthy. Only thing is, if you remember 2016-17, tons of money came into this segment of the market, which drove the premium multiple, so to speak, to all-time high, record high, so to speak. PEG on our portfolio IOP was 2.4, but that is the time when money all started coming in. At this given point in time, you are in such a situation that if you compare the Nifty to the small cap index ratio any time in the last maybe 25, 30 years, they have never been at 0.5%. Whenever that ratio hits 0.5%, there is a very sharp pullback. On a rolling 3-year return basis, a small cap portfolio has not underperformed the benchmark anytime ever on a relative basis. On an absolute basis, we have never seen 2 consecutive negative returns for the small cap space. Now it's 3 years in a row. It would be out of the world to expect that you have the next 2 to 3 years also negative returns. I mean, if history was not to repeat itself and this sort of thing plays out, I would be very surprised. I would be very surprised that the portfolios don't double from here, because it's all to do with selection of the stocks. I am not saying that you go and buy the index per se, but my firm belief is that if these companies are unleveraged, these companies are structural, and these companies are run by good management, the price value equation is such, and if these big can grow bigger, all of that is perfectly fine. If these businesses are within the top in their sector, these businesses are structural, these businesses are run by good management, you cannot get a better price. Just ensure that these businesses exist after 10 years. You have absolute money in the making, you have relative money in the making, everything will be your game. The absolute valuation, relative valuation is all there, more than enough discounted in the price. Seems like a lousy comparison, but that's the way it is. Absolute PEGs have crashed. Discount of the small cap is 27%, whereas the large cap and the mid cap index are at same valuation of around 20 times. The small cap is even today at a discount of 27% to the large cap index. And in euphoric times, this has gone to a premium of 40%, which was again such a situation, but I mean, that's the way the world. A great return in the year 2016-17, some alpha of 15-20%, and tons of money comes in, and then you have fund flows choked into this segment of the market because it's all the classification game, etc. So I think there is a great value in the mid and the small caps.
So on that optimistic note, we are going to sign off the first Motilal Oswal Global Partners Summit. You've seen all the insights on economy, on the markets, on the global side, our philosophy, grilling our fund managers. So thank you so much for being clued in for the last 2 days, and wish you all very happy investing, and thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, gentlemen. So ladies and gentlemen, that brings us to the end of the inaugural Motilal Oswal Global Partners Summit. Stay healthy and stay invested. Thank you very much. Have a good weekend.
Mutual fund investments are subject to market risks. Read all scheme-related documents carefully.